Okay, so number 9 on your 4E assignment's kind of a little bit more tricky, so I just kind of wanted to walk through it. So you'll have a problem similar to this. The numbers will probably be different, but you'll go through like similar process. So it says the rent on an apartment you'd like is $2,100 per month. The monthly mortgage payment for a house you would like is $2,300 a month, of which approximately $1,450 would go towards interest. Decide whether your monthly expenses would be higher for the apartment or for the house in the following cases. Assume you're single and assume the 2021 value of the 2021 value for the standard deduction is $12,550. Okay, so in situation A, you're in the 24% tax bracket, and besides mortgage interest deduction, you also have deductible expenses of $5,100 for charitable deductions, donations, and $8,900 for state and local taxes. So the first thing we'd want to determine is whether you're going to choose to take the standard deduction of the $12,550 or if you're wanting to itemize your deductions. So to determine if you're going to itemize, first off, you're going to add your charitable contributions and your state and local tax. So if you rent, you might want to itemize or still do the standard deduction. So this is saying if you add those two numbers together, then I kind of have the things stepped up right here, what you're going to be getting. If you add them together, you get $14,000. $14,000 is greater than the standard deduction, which means you're going to want to itemize if you rent, which means you're also going to itemize if you buy also. Okay, so we're going to itemize your deductions. So now that you know you're going to itemize, we need to determine when you take into account itemizing things is the money you, because when you itemize, if you bought, this money that goes towards your interest will also be allowed to be itemized when you bought. So your standard deduction, so the deduction, basically if you itemize, what you're going to do is this monthly, if you buy that $1,450 that you pay each month, since you're in the 24% tax bracket, each month you're actually saving money in overall in the long run, a little bit of money that would be included in the itemized deductions. So each month, if I did the 0.24 for 24% and times it by the $1,450, it's saying that each month, per month, you end up saving $348. So if we say you bought, you would take the amount that you're paying each month for buying the house, minusing off each month that $348 that you'll end up saving in taxes when you do the itemized deduction, and that's bringing the true cost for your mortgage down to $1,952, which that amount is less than the amount that it would cost you if you rented. So in this case, it is cheaper to buy than it is to rent. Now on Part B, they changed the situation a little bit. So you're in the 22% tax bracket, and besides the mortgage interest deductions, you have the deductible expenses of $900 for charitable donations and $2,700 for state and local taxes. So we would need to determine if you rent, if you would be itemizing or not. So if you rented, if you added those together, you would get $3,600. So if you rented, you would not choose to itemize. Instead, you would be taking the standard deduction because the standard deduction of $12,550 is larger. So renting, you're just taking the standard deduction. Okay. Now, if you bought, you might choose to itemize because it might be when you take into account this interest right here, or how much you're paying in interest, that might bring you it higher than the standard deduction. So we're going to take that $1,450 and times it by 12 because you're paying that amount each month. So to find out if you're going to itemize, you'll add the $900 with the $2,700 plus 12 times that $1,450, and that gives me $21,000. So since $21,000 is greater than the standard deduction, you're going to choose to itemize if you buy. So if you rent, you're going to do the standard deduction. If you buy, you're going to do the itemized deduction. So now we need to calculate how much money per month you're going to be saving off of when you do the itemization. And so you're in the 22% tax bracket. So this piece right here, they're taking your itemized contributions and subtracting off the standard deduction to see how much money you're saving, to try to figure out how much you're going to be saving if you itemize versus take the standard deduction. So they subtract those to find out the difference between them, and then they times it by 0.22. So then you're saving $1,859 by choosing to take the itemized deduction and by choosing to do the itemized deduction instead of the standard deduction. Now that's per year, so you need to figure out what you're saving per month because we have our monthly mortgage up here. So they're going to take, if you buy, your monthly mortgage is $2,300, and then they're taking what you're saving and dividing it by 12 to get it into a month, and that ends up being $2,145. So this amount is a little bit higher than what it would cost if you were to rent. So in this case, if you wanted to know which one would be cheaper overall, it would be cheaper to rent than it would be to buy. On the one up here, I didn't have to go through these extra steps because they would be itemizing in each case, whether you rented or bought, you're going to be itemizing. So I didn't have to come and figure out the difference between the two. On this one I had to because renting you would be doing one and buying you'd be doing the other.